Well, welcome to this budget workshop of the Aberdeen City Council. It is 6:30 on November 18th, and I would ask for a roll call.
Thank you. Andrews? She did tell us she'd be a little late. Ellis?
Yes, I'm here.
Francie? Gordon?
Here.
Kochman? Here. Meskis?
Present, but don't forget John.
Yep, this is an old list and it had them out of order. Mackey?
Here.
Thank you. Rich Rod?
Yeah.
Ross? Shaw?
Here.
Short? Taylor? Taylor? I see you there, but you're not there.
Here.
Thank you. And Shave, just in the nick of time. Roll call. Shave?
You're muted, Mayor.
Sorry, here.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody for being able to come tonight. I know that our council member Ross was a maybe, and since she's not here, it's a workshop, so there's no excusing to do, but we did know that she might not be able to join us. At this point, I'm like last night, I'll just turn it over to the mayor and his staff to continue taking us through the proposed plan for 2022.
Okay, well, next thing on the agenda is the community development.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully you'll all be able to see it. Everybody see that?
Looks good.
Yep.
Okay. So tonight I'm going to talk about community development and the abatement. So that's nuisance abatement and building abatement. So the Community Development Department is comprised of the Building Division, Planning Division, and Property Maintenance Division. The abatement is comprised of the nuisance abatement and building abatement. Our organizational chart for community development is as follows. We have a director, an assistant director, a code compliance specialist, a building official, a building inspector. It's 1, 2, and 3 because depending upon what we have going on at the moment, it's any one of those building inspectors, and then a floodplain specialist. Year to date for community development, in the 2021 budget, we budgeted $325,000 in revenue. And as of November 10th, we are sitting at $631,435. So it has been an incredible year for our department. Expenses for the Community Development Department, in 2021, we budgeted $676,127, which included $150 for the Comprehensive Land Use Plan update. And as of November 10th, we are sitting at about roughly $506,000 in expenses. So we're on track to go underneath budget as well on expenses. Year to date, so building and planning divisions have had a record year for permits at just over 220,000. That is incredible. That has been a tremendous amount of work. You think that with a permit tech and a building inspector, we've had our assistant community development director, Bill, who's also in attendance this evening, has also had to pitch in to help cover all of the inspections on permits. And you also think that almost every permit that comes in has to be reviewed for critical areas, shoreline, and so forth. So that's a lot of work for our staff, but I have one of the best staffs out there, and I can't say enough positive things about them. It truly is a team environment. Property maintenance has completed just over 140 rental inspections. This year, getting licensed owner to register properties has been a challenge. We have over estimated 1,600 rental units in Aberdeen, with only 437 in compliance. Code compliance and nuisance abatement has responded to 650 complaints versus 647 in all of 2020. Average, based on the last 7 years, we process about 638 complaints. So that's definitely tracking above average as well. A building abatement, we've had compliance with 9 properties that were on our abatement list. We've been working with the property owners to spare the city that expense. So we've had 9 homeowners comply with that, and we've been able to have 9 abatements, as well as 1 large demolition of a commercial structure. So community development for 2022, I put on there the 2021 budget, what we're asking for or the mayor's budget in 2022, and what that difference is. So primarily, the big change for this year is we are asking for $180,000 to do the update to the 1991 zoning code. We've been getting a lot of questions as far as land use development, which is homeless facilities, tiny homes. Our sign codes are outdated, our parking is outdated, and this is following the update to the comp plan. This is a necessary document in order for us to proceed forward and continue to have good regulations when it comes for development. So that's one of the biggest differences we have this year. Again, if there's any questions, please, go ahead and ask as we go. Abatement. Again, this fund has taken a hit through the years. It was used, the surplus we had was used to buy the River Street property and clean it up, as well as purchase all of the other properties that we've had, that we get at tax abatement and through abatement. So this year we did come and ask for a supplemental to tear down the large commercial structure. So that's kind of where this fund sits at. Next year, we did have in our budget to take down another commercial structure, but that was taken out of the budget. Again, it's a large expense for the city to bear, but one we just wanted to keep on the radar, and that would be the Rocky's U-Bake Pizza building. That is in serious need of some attention. So we'll keep monitoring that in 2022 and hopefully take another stab at it in 23. So that's kind of where we're at with abatement and nuisance abatement. We did budget for $50,000 for abatement, and that's just to continue on with small houses as we get them. We've had a couple fire damaged houses that we are in the process of abating, and one we did knock down this year, and those continue to be a challenge. So we do have a little bit of money in there to cover those expenses. Revenues, again, for 2021, we did budget $325,000 in revenue. We came in well over that. Next year, we did increase that projected revenue by $62,300. So we're tracking a little bit above average on there. And then our 2021 accomplishments. Again, we processed over 2,020 permits, and we're still tracking that. We still have roughly a month and a half to go, and we're still getting them in, and revenue's still coming in. We responded to over 650 nuisance complaints. We'll be on track to complete the 2021 Comprehensive Land Use Plan update. We completed the update to the Critical Areas Ordinance as required by law. We oversaw the demolition of one large commercial structure, and we hired a new code compliance specialist in October of 2021. She's been working, most of October, she worked part-time with water customer service because she left water customer service to come to work in our department. And so we've got her kind of full-time right now. She's still helping out a little bit as they've gone through their transitions as well. So, well, again, it's a team effort, and we're happy to have some help there. It'll allow us to at least be a little bit more proactive on our abatements and search warrants. And then the 2021 challenges, again, 2020 permits has been a challenge. We've borrowed Bill from code compliance. We've borrowed John from property maintenance. And we've done everything we can to keep those permits flowing and people happy with the permits. No one's ever happy, obviously, when you discover that work's been done without a permit, and we tried to work through those challenges. But I think our department does a really good job in doing that. Again, not everybody's always going to be happy, especially with building permits. We lost the building inspector 3, which is also our certified floodplain administrator. So that has put us back a little bit on getting the community rating system and getting certified for that. So we, one of the things that we plan on doing next year is looking at taking our permit tech and sending her to that floodplain training class that FEMA provides and pays for, and get her certified so that we can continue to go toward getting that community rating system, which will save the citizens money on their flood insurance rates. So that's our plan for that. We are behind on building abatements because, again, a lot of permits we've had to take off other things to just get those caught up and permits done. Homeless response, that has been uptick over the last few years, and we respond when we have people camping. It has been tough, especially when it's on private property. There is a process that needs to happen on right-of-ways. Also, we've got a lot of complaints on people living in RVs. And again, rental license compliance also is a big challenge for us. In 2022, I'm looking forward to working with the city attorney and trying to see if we can get some more teeth in the compliance portion. We just really don't have the teeth to get people to comply. So we're going to be working within our legal means and with our legal help to figure out what that looks like. And then goals for 2022. We're going to continue to process permits in a timely manner, update, hopefully, the 1991 zoning code, complete the mandatory update to the Shoreline Master Program, facilitate the remodel of the Aberdeen Library, implement new and improved software for the permit center, and work with the city attorney to enforce rental licenses. So that's kind of where we're at, and that I'm going to stop sharing. If you guys have any questions, please ask, and Bill is here if you have some specific questions regarding abatement or nuisance and code compliance.
I've got a few questions, Lisa. This is Liz.
Excuse me, Liz, it looked like Councilmember Taylor had his hand up for a minute.
Oh, forgive me.
No, okay. So go ahead.
Lisa, could you tell us what some examples are of other services and charges?
Patricia, can you jump in on that? I sometimes forget what's all included in that.
Please repeat what area you were looking at.
The other services and charges.
Okay, there's telephone. Hold on, let me pull the actual document.
Sorry.
Okay.
I think it's postage, telephone.
Yeah, I'm trying to get to it real quick. Hold on.
admin kinds of things, copies maybe?
Yeah, that would be copier charges, unless it's a lease, then that goes under leases. Other charges. Kind of the larger one of the grouped items.
Let's see if I can't answer that. So would that include supplies, telephone postage, insurance,
That's on a separate line.
is it
Yep.
equipment rental?
Rental and leases are on another line too. Don't have it quickly up as I thought.
Tom,
Still
so
looking.
Tom just sent me a quick message and he says everything but supplies and wages.
Pretty, and Tom's pretty right. It has
Okay.
some other things in there, but they're typically just the supplies and charges that aren't segregated out. So salaries, fringe, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, thanks. And then professional services, I just see $5,000 budgeted. That must be for non-contractual kinds of things.
Oh, under abatement,
Yes.
that would be for the computer program, the software.
Oh,
We
okay.
pay an annual fee for that and we spread that out.
Professional services are for contractual and not contractual. So if you have someone doing services for you, that's what's going into professional services.
Okay. And then goals, you didn't list the Gateway Center. And is that on your list?
You know, that is yes, it is on my list. We're gonna continue to work through that and with the consultant. I don't know. I'm not sure as to what will all come forward in 2022 because we're kind of in a hold pattern with the levy. Yes, that was a mistake on my part and I definitely should have added that, but that is on there as well.
And then since you have homeless response on your budget,
I should not have that.
oh, okay. Maybe it was under the abatement side of things.
It could have been from when we had tassel assigned to us before. But
Okay,
it is, yeah, not.
okay.
You might be referring to cleanup, homeless
Yeah,
cleanup stuff.
Oh yeah.
Code.
So every time we get complaints, Bill, you want to talk to this? You can answer this better than I can.
Yeah, I get complaints on all the RVs and trailers and then the campsites around town that we have to deal with and go in and clean up. Most of the time I can get the city crew to go in if they're on city property. If they're on private property, then there's a process that I have to follow to try and get the property owner to clean them up. But we have quite a few of those scattered around throughout the city that pop up here and there off and on. We'll get one site cleaned up and then we'll move to a different one. And then that other site that we got cleaned up that pops back up again. One that comes to mind is the area that's called 450 North E. It's up in that area. There's some vehicles that people are living in, and then there's campsites up there that we've cleaned up. The property owner is cleaned up several times. There is a new property owner, so he's working on that. He was trying to work with the police department to help him get because they're camping right underneath his no trespassing sign. So, and then we get them down by the river, by the railroad tracks, and just all over the city.
So I guess my question is, those camps aren't going away. The need to clean up after those camps isn't going away. And yet there's no money earmarked in the homeless budget. Do you have money in your budget to continue these cleanups, whether it's to pay city staff or otherwise?
Yeah, it's under the nuisance. It's under
Yeah.
the nuisance abatements.
And do you feel like that's sufficient?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Katie?
Yes, I was just going to ask, you mentioned a building for abatement, I believe, and you said it was a pizza something. So I was wondering if you can give a little bit more context around that. And I was also going to ask you too about where the Thunderbird is as far as abatement.
So the Thunderbird. So the abatement is a process. So when we go through an abatement, we have to physically go into the structures. We have to measure everything. We have to put values to everything. And we have to determine whether or not it's, is it less money to tear down and build or to remodel? And so the Thunderbird didn't meet the criteria for us to demolish because it was still a structurally sound building. We need to revisit that, and we may do that in 2022. But at the time when we did look at it, it didn't meet the qualifications for us to demo that. In terms of the other building, yeah, we've noticed some structural cracks in that building that we're concerned about. And so we're just going to be monitoring that. It's not occupied at this point. So it's less of a concern, but we are monitoring that, and it is on our radar.
So it's probably more of a 2023 plan for both of those facilities.
Yes. Yeah, we can do some of the legwork on the Thunderbird. I'm not sure it will meet the criteria that we need in order to do that. It's a certain formula that every year you guys approve a code program for Marshall and Swift, and it's usually at the beginning of the year. And that's a program we use to assess those values and go through. Abatements are very time consuming for us, especially when we have to go in and measure everything and then try to figure out what all the replacement values are. So yeah, we'll continue to monitor that. And maybe next year we can get some of that legwork done and put a value to that so we can budget maybe for 23.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I have a few more questions, but I will save them for offline in the interest of
Okay,
time.
sure.
Could I follow up? So Lisa, are you saying the Thunderbird is owned by the city then at this point? Or
No, the Thunderbird is not owned by the city.
so the owner will be responsible for making those abatements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, unless they can't do it or walk away from it. Okay. Is that it? All right, I'm done
I
then.
think so. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, I don't have my agenda called up, so whoever's next. Oh, there she is.
That would be me. So I will share my screen. Let me get to. Why am I not seeing slideshow view? Anyways, so we'll start. So what does your Aberdeen Parks and Recreation Department do? So in our maintenance department, we have 3 full-time employees and up to 15 seasonal employees that are working for us, mostly during the spring and summer. Our full-time employees, we need to have someone that's NPSI certified, which is the National Playground Safety Institute. We have to have someone on staff that has their public pesticides applicator license, and our staff needs to go through risk management training. The Parks Department has 16 parks and over 200 acres of developed property valued at over $15 million. For our beautification program, we now have 160 hanging baskets and 130 ground pots. We're responsible for all of the downtown street trees. There's about 189 trees downtown, 36 trash receptacles. We're responsible for all of the city-owned art. We currently have about 54 pieces of city-owned art, and we've got that valued at a little over $2 million. We're also responsible for the indoor practice building, the Rotary Log Pavilion. We've got 9 restroom buildings, 2 maintenance shops, 4 trail systems, and the Armory Annex building. We've got 10 baseball, softball fields, 4 soccer fields. We work in partnership with the Public Works Department on all of our construction projects. And we're responsible for the holiday decorations in the wintertime. The Aberdeen Museum is the responsibility of the Parks Department. We partner with the court on the court-assigned community service program. And we also have various volunteer groups. The Bloom team, I think, is probably the most well-known. But we have a number of other groups, school groups, church groups, and just citizen groups that volunteer in our park system. Administration and recreation. We have 3 full-time employees that work in the office. We've got myself, the parks director, the assistant parks director, and our recreation coordinator. We're responsible for all the adult sports programs, the youth recreation programs. We do the scheduling for all of our youth sports leagues that utilize our facilities. We are responsible for the special events permits for all of our events in our public right-of-ways. We run a pretty large volunteer program now. We schedule the community event sign as you come into Aberdeen, all the capital projects for our park remodels. We have a park board with 5 park board members. We're responsible for the lodging tax grant fund, the museum, the Rotary Log Pavilion, as I mentioned earlier. In this last year, we put in a number of grant applications. We put in 2 to the Washington State Recreation and Conservation Office, 2 to the Grays Harbor Community Foundation. We do a Toyota match grant. We did the SEEK grant, the county lodging tax grant, and the city's lodging tax grant. We received a number of donations from local groups for our capital projects, the Splash Festival, our Easter egg hunt, and some of our other youth activities. In the Parks Department, we've got the Parks Director, the Assistant Parks Director, the Recreation Coordinator on the administrative side, and then for the maintenance side, we have 3 full-time employees. The Park Maintenance Supervisor, our Maintenance 3, and our Park Maintenance 1. In green is the pay range for each of those positions. We also have anywhere from 5 to 15 seasonals on staff. I know on the report that the finance director put together for how many employees we have, full-time equivalents, it says that the Parks Department has 11 full-time equivalent employees. We have 6 full-time employees, and then we have enough seasonal employee staff hours that they're equivalent to 5 more full-time employees. So at a glance, this last year, still working on the Armory fire. As you all know, the city has joined our insurance company in a lawsuit against McKinstry. I've been responsible for working with the museum board. We received a grant from the RCO for the Little League project. We've completed the remodel of Garley Park, and we built Aberdeen's first dog park. I serve as the city's representative for COVID-19. I'm working on the proposed RV park, and we moved the Bell at Sandbend Park and created a new plaza area. So the fund, I think that people, when they think of the Parks Department, the fund that operates most of what the Parks Department does is Parks Fund 102. In 2021, our budget request was a little over $1.2 million. This year, our budget request is a little over $1.5 million. That's an increase of $335,487, with $300,000 of that being the Little League remodel project. That will all be paid for through grants and donations. We received just under $300,000 from the RCO for the Little League grant project, or the Little League remodel project, and we received $25,000 from the Grace Harbor Community Foundation. So some new things for 2022 in Fund 102 would include, I would like to promote my recreation coordinator to a recreation supervisor. That's a pay range increase. That would not be an additional employee, but just a promotion. So the rec coordinator position would be left vacant, should that promotion be approved. We've added a truck. The truck that's being replaced is a 1999 Ford. It's 23 years old. It's well past its life. We've seen an increase in our insurance costs, about $8,000. We have 4 light poles at Morrison Park that need to be replaced. Of course, the Parks Department is moving to a leased office space, and that's about $18,000 a year. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have the Little League restroom and fencing project. Did anyone have any questions about 102? I'd like to take questions as we're on each fund, probably easiest for me. Yes, Liz.
Thank you. So your request for a truck, is that also on hold with the other vehicle purchases that we heard about yesterday?
I am not aware of it being on hold. In my meeting with the mayor, I had originally requested 2 vehicles. And in order to get my budget request down to the same amount as was requested last year, we needed to reduce it to 1 vehicle.
Okay. And then the insurance going up by $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
We were given information about added claims, and that some of those claims are I don't remember exactly, but some of them are vehicle related, I think. Others have to do with other things. But are you addressing within your department how to get those claims down?
In the report that I looked at today, the Parks Department is at the average or below average for claims. What happens is a large percentage of the claims are coming out of public safety. And so my understanding is that amount that it's increased to the city is distributed by percentage to department, regardless of how many claims we've had.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I can't see everyone on my screen. Okay. Paths and trails. Paths and trails are funds that we receive through the motor vehicle tax. That money has a restricted use, and it can only be used for paths and trails projects. So we plan to use some of that money to work on the design for the bridge repair at Stewart's Park. So in the photo here on the far right, you can see the bridge that's in pretty poor condition. That is in need of actually probably replacement and new foundation work. Morrison Park Pavilion Fund 107. This fund is for all of the rentals of the Rotary Log Pavilion, and the expenses for the pavilion include supplies, staffing. We have staff that work at the events, electric bill, gas bill, Wi-Fi, and just your typical expenses, garbage for operations of a rental facility. I manage Fund 125, which is the museum fund. This year, we have added some additional funds for museum supplies. We have the monthly warehouse lease. We have bills for the Wi-Fi and the garbage service. We have the fire monitoring system, and we're still paying the gas bill for the Armory Annex. The Recreational Sports Fund 132, it's kind of like an enterprise fund in that it's not a general fund. All money put into Fund 132 carries over each year in Fund 132. Some programs that you would be familiar with that we operate out of Fund 132 are all of our adult sports programs, the Splash Festival, our youth sports and camps, our Girls Fast Pitch, and our beautification program. By using this fund for things like the Splash Festival and the beautification program, we can ensure that the money that's donated or received through grants for those programs is actually used for those programs. The Lodging Tax Fund 303, that's the fund that we use to give out the grants for the various events. You can see some photos on the right of the Sunday market, the Summerfest. You can see some of our volunteers dressed as flowers. They're on the Bloom team. We use some of that money to pay for the flower program and our art walk. Last year, we budgeted about $65,000 to be given out to our groups. We had some carryover due to COVID. So last year, I believe we gave out closer to $90,000. I've budgeted this year again for $65,000 to be giving out for lodging tax grants. We do have a few groups that did not hold their events this year, so we will have a small carryover into 2022. And lastly, those of you who don't know Ron Swanson, he is the Parks Director from the TV show Parks and Recreation. And he says that parks and playgrounds are the soul of the city. I don't know if anyone had any other questions.
I had a few more.
Sure.
So the museum fund shows nothing for repair and maintenance or capital projects.
Yes.
And
Or is there some specific project that you were thinking of that we would need funding for?
Oh, maybe a new museum?
Well, I don't know how much you would like to budget for a new museum. Are you talking about for the purchase of a building or for the maintenance of a building? If we were to own one.
Yeah. Well, for both, what the heck?
So I put together a contingency budget for the mayor and the finance director that addresses, should the city own a building, what I anticipate those additional monthly expenses to be for owning and operating a building. But as of right now, since we do not own the building, that was not the budget that was chosen to be presented.
Okay. And then you didn't say that the community center is within your purview, but maybe you can answer my question of why the community center fund was closed.
Fund 128?
Yeah.
Because there isn't a building anymore.
Is that the same as the senior center?
That's the senior center was located in the Armory building, yes.
Oh, okay. And does the senior center get funding from the city?
They get $750 a quarter.
I think that's all my park related questions for you, Stacy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, thank you. It sounds like I answered questions in my presentation.
Well, thank you, Leslie. I mean, Stacy. So next on our agenda.
Public Works, Rick Sanger.
I think that's me. So, thank you, everybody, and good evening. Turns out I picked the wrong week to go on vacation last week, come back to a big presentation that I had to prepare for. So hopefully it'll answer all your questions, but I know I struggled a bit with this one. We've gone through a different process a little bit, not a different process, but some different forms. And I can absolutely see the merit in them. Finance director is making some good changes, but I did struggle a little bit finding the numbers and, like when we have a budget and year after year budget, if we have a cash carryover, something that is now affecting the budget like it didn't before. So it's hard for me to track numbers year to year sometimes. So I think I understand what Patricia is doing, and I am 100% behind it. Makes sense. I just wanted to apologize if there's any confusion when I jump into this thing. So I am going to share my screen, I think. Okay, does everybody see my org chart to start out with?
Yep.
Okay, so just real quick, I didn't have it in my presentation, but everybody else has an org chart, so I figured I'd bring mine up too. So anyway, the blue depicts the management team, yellow depicts the supervisory team, and all the rest of the positions are there. We have them, as you can see, we're quite spread out, and we handle a lot of different departments. So I will bring up and I'm going to mostly read. If you have questions, I don't have any issues with stopping along the way and answering questions as we go. But I made this nice presentation, so I want to get it all out to you guys. Anyway, the Public Works Department. First, our mission statement. Our mission is to support Aberdeen's citizens, property owners, and government through the number one thing: honest, open, and transparent communication. We try to do everything transparently so that it doesn't. We're not trying to hide anything. We want to do everything right, even if it creates issues. So I have had to have some very candid conversations with grant people that thought that the award that we have gotten doesn't meet their grant, and we don't placate. We tell it like it is. So stewardship of public infrastructure, facilities, environment, engineering and construction of capital improvements, planning for long-term sustainability, and excellent customer service. So the Public Works Department, I already went through my org chart, but our leadership team is myself. Mike Randich is the Public Works O&M manager, and I'm happy to say that Nick Bird has accepted the city engineer position. He was the Public Works Director for the City of Ocean Shores for 12 years. He is tired of the political climate of being a Public Works Director, wants to work on projects and kind of restart. And I think this is going to be the perfect opportunity for him because we have a lot of projects. So, and I also put our chief operators. Bruce Davis is our water treatment plant chief operator, and Kyle Scott is our wastewater treatment plant chief operator. These guys are in charge of those plants. I have no idea what they do. I don't have the certifications. I trust them to keep the plant in compliance, and they always do. So, Public Works Department. In 2021 department-wide accomplishments, these are very generic. They were probably somewhat the same as 2020 department-wide accomplishments. We try and get every grant that comes out. We apply for them, even when we don't think we have the manpower to administer them. We're gluttons for punishment. We've been really successful, which is good and bad. So we emphasize on policies which ensure compliance with municipal procedure requirements. We have an active citizen action request program, and that's we call it the CAR. Any council person that calls me with a complaint, I always call my administrative assistant and have them write up a car. The car is a way we track our complaints. The person that made the complaint gets a 5-day letter. They get a letter within 5 days saying that we've accepted, we've got your complaint and we're looking into it. Because sometimes that's all we can do, but everybody wants to be heard. They want to know that their complaint is heard. So we really have tried to do, have a good, strong presence in that. I think last year we had around 190 for the year. We're at 159 this year. I don't know if that means we're doing a better job or people are complaining less or there's less things out there, but whatever it is. We try and foster an open and collaborative work environment. We encourage interdepartmental coordination and support. I heard Stacy say that I partner with her on all of her construction. Well, that's not always me willingly, but yes, we do seem to always partner with parts. So, and then, well, that's an old one right there, created an administrative office. We did that last year, so I should have taken that one off. But that has been a absolutely fabulous investment on our part. So it's if you haven't seen our administrative office, that's a good place to stop in and take a look at what our city staff can do. Fund 101-19, which is facilities. The 2021 budget was $346,016. 2022 budget is $179,336, and the difference is $166. Now, basically, what that comes down to is facilities. We do projects, and year to year, it depends on what project is coming up. So, in 2021, we put a new roof on City Hall. And we had budgeted 150,000 and it came in at like 170,000. So it was more than we had budgeted. And we also had a water leak on the 3rd floor that ended up with 2 inches of water on the 3rd floor and dripping down into the 2nd floor, creating moisture problems that wasn't obviously budgeted. And so we had to do those items. And what ended up happening is we used money that was for other projects, other things in our facilities budget to take care of the shortfall and to deal with the water leak damage. So, and we had a rekeying that we were hoping to do, and we weren't able to do that as well. So it was good news is that as of 2020, Kone, our elevator company, had come back and said, you don't need to replace your elevator. I don't know if you guys recall, but we had budgeted for a replacement. They came back and said, you don't need to replace your elevator. And that was mainly the technicians that were out here on site. And I don't know if they have new technicians or what, but I just received within the last month a notice from Kone that says we should plan to replace our elevator, which, a year later, I think what we'll end up doing is getting an independent evaluation just to see what the issues are. You can see from the pictures, the elevator is antiquated. It's from the original building. The picture with the open cabinet, those are all the old mechanical switches. It's a old building or old elevator, but I think the biggest concern was that it has a single bottom cylinder, something along those lines. I'm not an elevator expert, but supposedly that there had been some catastrophic failures in the past of that type. And now they're saying that we need to replace it again. So again, I'm not an expert. We will look into it. This is what we put in the budget for this year was $100,000 for upgrades to the building. Basically, we're looking at sealing the brick, and then we're doing a redesign of the plaza area. We had originally planned for, I think we had 40,000 for the plaza concrete last year, which we were going to do a phase of it. We've got all kinds of trip hazards out there. We have one person trip and fall, and it's going to eat up that $100,000 in a big hurry. So I gave you a plan view. This is from our drone, just so you could see. It's not your typical, you can see in the upper left-hand corner of that picture, that's a sidewalk that we put in 2 years ago. It's not like that. It's got all these different colors of concrete and different panels, and the drainage is kind of wonky. It all needs to be addressed, and the plan is for the city staff to do it. But there will be some things that the city staff can't do. So we'll probably have to redo the drainage, but we'll probably try and do the concrete work. Oh, that's it for facilities. Any questions on facilities? Okay, that's what I like. I was sure with
Rick, I wanted to just one clarification on the elevator.
okay.
Had you budgeted this time for a new elevator and then you're just not going to use it? Oh, okay. That's what I thought. All right.
Yeah, we didn't budget. It just came out. I just got the letter like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's not restrictive, very definitive language. It's you should plan for a new elevator. So, are they just looking for work? I don't know. But a new elevator is going to be $170,000. So,
yeah.
We want to make sure that we really need a new elevator, even if it costs us a couple $1,000s to get it, reviewed and an independent third party to come in and evaluate it. So,
Thanks.
Yep. Fund 00121 engineering. This is our biggest presentation by far. Most stuff we got going on is in engineering. It affects all the other departments. We really try and run things through engineering. There was a time where we kind of just let the street and water and sewer departments run on their own and install things on their own. We really try and give them support and design and drawings. Lisa said they're busy. Well, she's right, they're busy, and every one of their permits we have to review. So, and at one time, there wasn't much of a review going on in engineering. So I talked to Kyle Fisher today about his review, and he said that he's certain for the year he's got over 600 or 700 hours in review. And this is our engineer too, who's responsible for our design. So, I mean, you're taking a big, 30% of his time, 40% of his time and putting it right to review. That's a tough one. So anyway, the budget is 403,840. The 22 budget, or the 21 budget was 403,840. The 22 budget is 503,061, and the difference being $99,221. The big part of that is insurance and wages. And talking to Patricia today, we think we found an issue where when we moved through this program, we were dealing with our lobbyists, and Public Works paid for it last year. So we put it back in the budget this year, but we asked Patricia to move it to governmental. Well, she did, but we left it in the budget too. So it appears that we've got it double dipped. So we're in the process of removing the lobbyists, Gordon Thomas Honeywell lobbyists, for $66,000 from engineering, which will bring down that variance down to like $30,000. And also you look at the flood elevation certificate pilot program, that's a $66,245 grant that's not accounted for right now. So it will be 100%. That grant will be paid for as well. So we've reduced the amount of engineering on call work because I've been able to hire a new city engineer, and I'm still hopeful to fill my engineer 3 position. And what we reduced it overall, but we also took it out of engineering. So when we put $50,000 into sewer and water for their engineering on call work, they're self-funded utilities. We should not be propping up water and sewer with general fund money. So we took that on-call work out of engineering and put it there. That is not a guarantee to be spent. It's for things that come up that we don't anticipate, and that happens a lot. So usually some structural issue or a landslide or what have you. 2021 accomplishments. And for 2021, we managed a lot. projects and grants and administered them. I had a huge appreciation for Chris Koski, but I never had as much of appreciation until he was gone. And he was a dynamic guy and had a great work ethic, and we're going to miss him. And he did a lot of stuff around here, and now I'm doing it. So I'm a little overwhelmed at times. So, but we're doing project admin, management and admin. We got our capital project planning for the North Shore Levee, the Fry Creek Pump Station. We got a restoration project on Fry Creek. We got the US 12 Highway Rail Separation Project. We got the downtown Aberdeen revitalization traffic improvements, which goes to bid this month or the 1st of December, which will be built in the spring. That's the roundabout on Market Street. We got our transportation improvement funds, which we will be spending. That's a little bit different process. We put out our TBD list by ordinance, and it has to come through. It's like in March, it comes to the council through ordinance and approval. So, but we budgeted $1 million for projects there, and it looks like we will have like $750,000, $1 million at the end of the year as well. So, I mean, it is just a fantastic fund that we get a lot of things done with, because we turn it around and we leverage it into other money. And then I'll give you an example. Is we just applied for a TA grant, which is a transportation alternatives grant, to put sidewalks on Sumner Street between Division and Myrtle. So if you've driven down there, you can see that there's intermittent sidewalks, but the state, when they did the paving job, they put in the ADA ramp. So we have a whole bunch of ADA ramps that don't have sidewalks connected to them. So we put together a grant proposal, and it was like $800,000. And we applied for a grant from TA, which typically funding is only $350,000. So we are matching $450,000 with our TBD, proposing to match with our TBD money. What that does is it sells a grant. So they see that you have skin in the game. They score you higher because you're matching with more. And then what we do is, once we get the grant, then we go to TIB, which is a different funding source, a state funding source, and we ask them for money to help cover our match. And that's happened 3 different times, and we've been able to get funding that way. So we take advantage of the fact that we have a huge match, and then we go to TIB and ask them to help us with the match after we've been awarded. So that is our intent. Again, it's a valuable project. Even if we didn't get any more match, it's still a worthwhile project. That's the main corridor through town. So we'll keep moving. Waste with the water treatment plant hypochlorination. You've been hearing about this forever. That is basically getting rid of chlorine gas at the water treatment plant. We just completed the one at the sewer plant. That's done. This was originally came to you for the 2015 budget. That's how far back it is. And in 2015, if you remember, we had a big storm, lots of landslides. That money was not used for hypochlorination. It was used to fix water lines and repair slides. So we're fine. We came back to you last year, asked again. You granted us that money. We are moving forward with that. We're under contract with the contractor. We're still in the submittal process, but they expect to mobilize on site first week of December. So we are getting very close. The wastewater treatment plant influent screening and conveyance projects, that's ongoing right now. That's a project at the plant as well. This is at the wastewater treatment plant. All the waste, I probably didn't put a lot of time into the wastewater treatment plant presentation for the sewer department, because we've talked about it a lot, and all the costs, capital improvements have been plotted and planned out through our rate study and our rate increase. And I've submitted that a number of times. We talked about it at the rate study. We talked about the rate increase. If there's any questions, I can definitely look them up. I'm not going to even pretend that I can pull all this stuff out of my head at the time, but we can definitely get the information. The wastewater treatment plant disinfection projects that just completed. And then, of course, all the other stuff that we throw in on top. Projects we completed this year is the Stevens Elementary pedestrian improvements, which is that photo that you see there on your right. The new kind of white sidewalks, that's that project. You can see the Stevens School up in the left-hand corner. This is a great project. This one, where you can see where the cars are parked now. The cars used to be parked on the sidewalk where the sidewalk was. So the kids that were leaving Stevens had to walk in the road between cars that are moving and cars that are parked. And it was just a matter of time before somebody got squashed. So this was a really good project that we used, again, TBD money to leverage into a Safe Routes to School grant, and doubled our money and got this done. We just finished the West Aberdeen Safety Improvements Project, which is stop bars, ADA ramps over in the west end around the school. And that's been completed. We had TBD projects where we had grind and inlays on Wishkah, Heron, and Garfield, more around the port dock area, tying those in to the stuff that the state had already done. And then we also did a complete overlay of Thomas Street. Grind and inlays are where you bring in a big grinder, they grind out the amount of asphalt and then they replace it. So that you're not changing grade so much. An asphalt overlay is a better way to go if you can do it. But if you have curb face and things like that, though, if you go with an overlay, you reduce the amount of curb face you have, and then you end up, the more times you do that, obviously, the sooner you have to replace sidewalks and curbs. So it's a little bit more expensive to do a grind and inlay, but as long as you got a good base, it's a good way to go as well. Continued accomplishments. We support other departments in the city. We support other agencies. We are kind of the big brother to Grace Harbor. We have interlocals with a number of different cities. In fact, I think all of them. We try and help when we can. We don't get a lot of help in return. It's not always a fair trade. We have a lot more equipment, a lot more expertise. Perfect example of that is the North Shore Levee. We could have just as easily built a levee around Aberdeen and up Myrtle Street and left Hoquiam out, but that wasn't the right thing to do at the time. We didn't think, but we also handle all FEMA declarations. So in the last 4 years, I think we've gotten probably close to $1 million in FEMA declarations. It's the most paper intensive process you've ever seen, and it's horrible. And every time we have a declaration, I hope we don't have anything so I don't have to go through with it. But it's free money, so we do it. The last one we did, we probably had, I would guess I had a couple 100 hours into it, and we only got $30,000. But when you figure that out, $30,000 by 200 hours, it's a pretty good hourly wage. So we still do it. The GIS updates, we had GIS updates this year where we had an intern go out and collect all the water service infrastructure, meters, valves. We got that on our GIS maps. Now we have that. I don't know if you recall, but here a couple of weeks ago, I asked you for some tablets to put in the vehicles. Those tablets are so that they can pull up real-time data, which we're continue adding to our GIS maps. So they can pull up a map on an aerial photo, see exactly where the water line is, where the meters are, where the valve boxes are. So all good stuff. We have a new aerial photo that we had uploaded to our GIS map as well. That picture is an old picture, but I liked it because it shows the paving there on Market Street in front of the library with the flag. So we didn't do that in 2021. I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that that's just a picture. And I can see my graphic on this one is a little blurry. When I was putting it together, it didn't look that blurry. So funding requests, we applied for $50 million to the FEMA BRIC grant program. We applied for $2.08 million to the US 12 Highway Rail Separation RAISE program. And what we were awarded in 2021 was it's a award, but it's a loan. So it's not really anything to be hugely excited about, but it was for the reservoir liners and covers. We were awarded a grant for $300,000 for the Farragut Street pump station design. We were awarded $9 million for the Fry Creek construction appropriation to the capital budget. That wasn't a grant, that was just direct to the capital budget. And we also got put in a $60,000 grant for ecology for the south slope of the reservoir. We did the north slope last year. We're doing the south slope this year. That's been a pain. So, wow, my graphics suck. Anyway, funding requests awarded also in 2021. The Fairview Reservoir covers. Is that the same slide? No, applied for and awarded. So we got the loan for the reservoir covers and liners. We got the 300,000. We got the 9 million. We got the 2.08 million, and we got the 60,000. So we were really successful in getting free money. So engineering, our challenges, we have an increasing demand for contract support, procurement process, admin, and IT support. We probably do more contracts than anybody, and we do more RFQs and more RFPs, and we really feel we have a good grasp on the approval process and the through council and the procurement process. We're learning all the time that we don't have as good a grasp as we think we do, but we still do a pretty good job. So we do have a lot of departments reach out to us for help, and that's, as long as we can stay compliant, that's great. We have increasing demands on staff for design of city projects. That's by our own issue. We have forced most of it's our departments. We force ourselves on them. When you're out doing a project and you leave the guys in the field to do a project without any design or oversight, you don't always get the end product that you're after. So there's heightened scrutiny there. You can see that there's just demands for grant admin. There's demands for development permit reviews. Like I said about Kyle Fisher doing that. There's demands. We have the municipal stormwater phase 2 permit, which has always been very demanding. There's always been a lot of work, but the new regulations are really time intensive. So there's more work there. Challenges continued. Man, my graphics are bad. Anyway, that's somebody sitting at a desk with lots of paper.
Rick?
Yeah.
I just jump in here and emphasize that the 2.08 million for rail separation.
Yep.
That is a direct result of the city council's decision to partner with Hoquiam and invest in lobbyists. As you can clearly see right there, that one shot, it was a great investment.
Yep. For sure. We filled out the grant, but when you have somebody talking on your behalf and pushing our projects, that is, if you don't have anybody pushing it, they just end up in the round file. So absolutely if we get nothing else out of them for the rest of the time we have them, I still wouldn't consider it a waste. So, and we're counting on them for big things with the levy and, the grade separation, those projects coming down the line. we're operating at capacity. We anticipate increasing demand for services, but we're keeping on. So the proposal is to continue supporting current projects and obligations. We're going to continue to seek out and obtain revenue sources, and we're going to continue to identify and prioritize and address our long-term needs. And I like that graphic. It's going to be hard, but hard's not impossible. So I hope it doesn't sound like I'm whining, because it's way better to be too busy than not busy. So it's just at this time we're struggling, being down 2 engineers, 2 senior level engineers. So, but we'll get there. Any questions on engineering? Okay. Fund 103 street. Obviously, street department is responsible for the streets and the right of ways and everything between the property lines. That's stormwater kind of goes hand in hand with street. They're out of the same department. Sometimes they get grouped in. You can see my full-time employees and street, and then I also have a stormwater department. So those between street and stormwater, that adds up to the total. But even in that, they were combined. So, but the budget was $2,629,743 for 2021, and $2,721,294 for 2022. And I mean, we've have a lot of increase in costs. We had $90,000 in increase in insurance costs, and I understand how a risk pool works and how insurance works. And if your insurance goes up, it depends on how many cars you have is how much you go up. We are at the very bottom of the risk pool when it comes to, our guys do a pretty good job apparently being safe and not running into things. But at the same time, our insurance went up because the city's insurance went up and we have more cars than everybody. So just one of those things. Accomplishments, we continued with our maintenance program, mowing, street sweeping, vectoring our stormwater lines. We put down 450 tons of new asphalt and 200 yards of new concrete. This is in addition to the projects through TBD. Now, some of this probably was paid by TBD, but the TBD projects done by contractor, these totals don't kick into that. So you can see right here, this roadway section, this is up on 9th right there at Sandbend Park. Before we replaced it, you could drive down that street and you would hear the click clock of the concrete panels rocking, tearing brake lines out, who knows. So we replaced that. It is our intent to include money in TBD for materials to replace the other side of the street this coming year. So we will have that on our list. You can see the cracks, and the left side was definitely that, which is the south side, was definitely the better of the two. So, but you can see right there that we do I think we do a good job with our pool labor now. I can see 3 different departments guys right there. I can see water, sewer, and street. Oh, and stormwater. So we have everybody there. So, I mean, that's when we have big projects, we mobilize, we work together, and then they all work, across those division lines. We put in 19 new catch basins, 340 feet of linear feet of, I should say, of conveyance line installed to connect those 19 catch basins. But we hauled about 2,000 more cubic yards of material from our dump site at Hoquiam to up at Charlie Creek to Hoquiam. I think we did about 6,000 yards last year. We did that during the height of COVID, when we could just put people in trucks and leave them there, and then they didn't have to worry about contaminating somebody or getting sick. And the reason we do that, now that we got 8,000 cubic yards, they have a permitted site. So that gives us 8,000 yards of space at our dump site, which will probably get us another 10 years. So the idea is that our dump site was going to fill up at some point, and if we could get rid of that material at Hoquiam and help them out and help us out, that made a lot of sense. Oops, let me go back. The street department did TBD pre-level drainage work. So what that means is they would come in before the contractor, do pre-level work, dig out all the soft spots, put in ballast material, compact it, fix sidewalks, fix curb and gutters, do all that work that is a lot of man-hour intensive and costs a lot with a contractor. So we do that in-house because we were already budgeted for labor. And then we let the contractor come in and do what they do best, and that is put down a lot of asphalt in a hurry, which gets us a better price. And then we had an assessment of the city-owned traffic signals on Market, and then there's one on First, and that is ongoing. Hopefully that'll be done by the end of the year. Also, accomplishments, we purchased a lot of equipment. We purchased this equipment through a FEMA alternate project, which that means is that back in 2018, when we had issues with the Fry Creek pump station and we got in there at night and put those submersibles pumps in, FEMA came back and said, we'll pay you to whatever it costs to put that pump station back into pre-existing condition. And it was like $600,000. But we didn't want it back in pre-existing condition because we're building a new pump station, and we couldn't permit it as it was. They would pay us to do it, but we couldn't permit it to put it back because it was such a fish killer. So we took that money and we took it as an alternate project. And what we did was we bought a whole bunch of equipment. We bought a 12-yard dump truck, a 5-yard dump truck, a mini excavator, a skid steer. We bought some variable message boards. We bought a 4-post lift. All of those came before council for approval. And by buying these, we bought them in the street department because the street department's where we've been having the problems with the equipment rental reserve, right? So what's happened is they say we don't have enough money in our account to replace our equipment, and we need to depreciate it and have money in standby. So what we did was we just replaced it. It was everything that we replaced. There were a number of times we transferred something to the street department that needed to be replaced and then replaced it out of the street department. So the street department would get the new equipment because that buys us time. It gives us time to have to replace it now so that it lessens the blow of trying to get that equipment rental reserve back up where the state auditors are going to demand that we get it to at some point. So that is the excavator we bought. That's the same model. We bought a skid steer. I didn't include pictures of all that.
Rick, I think the last time we talked about this, we were waiting on the FEMA money, and I believe that just came in. So that 600,000 now is back in our account.
Yeah, it's been a process. Like I said, 2018. I mean, it was 2 years of just paperwork. So yeah, it's time intensive and paper intensive, and I don't like them, but we'll continue to put in for any money that they are willing to give us. So our challenges for the street department, we've had increasing insurance costs. We've got the social distancing requirements. That's, you can see this was when we replaced the pump stations, the Fry Creek pump station with those submersible pumps. That's about midnight right there. I have 1, 2, 3, looks like 4 guys in there. None of them are wearing waders. They're all in their jeans at midnight on a night when it's like 30 degrees. So, I know they take a bit of a beating sometimes, but we do have dedicated employees, and I'm proud of the work they do. And I think they may have deserved some bad press in the past, but we have the right supervisors in place now, and I think they do a damn good job.
It's hard to notice in this picture, but I went down there and looked at this, and these guys are over their waist in water in this picture. They're standing in water.
And so, some of those guys stood in that water for 3+ hours without getting out. They went in and they stayed until they got it done. So the reason we were working at midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, was because we had to do it at low tide. So high tide, the water's up here above their boots. So wait for low tide to get down there and be able to, and those pumps are still working. In fact, without them, we'd be in big trouble in the West End until our new pump station gets built. Again, our challenges, we got aging infrastructure. We got increased demands, coordinate, implement. What we are intending for our proposal for 22 is just to continue what we're doing. They're doing a good job, and the morale's up. The guys work hard. I go down from time to time to see if I catch anybody hanging out in the lunchroom, and I never do. They're working hard, and they're doing their job well. We included in the budget for the one position at the lowest grade, and that is a maintenance worker 1, and that is for the downtown cleanup role. We were tasked with that around April to do downtown cleanup at Tassel. We have done that. We've expended the money. Public Works has paid about half of what council we came to you Lisa came to you once, and I came to you once for some money. And then she came back and got for a second person. And we have used that money in about 40% of the cost out of Public Works to keep that person going. But I told the mayor that I was going to ask for, if it's important to council for that to keep happening, I was going to ask for that position. I look back on staffing levels, and we are, when I started in a long time ago in 98, we had 64 employees in Public Works. And now I think we're around 53. So, I mean, we're down everywhere. And again, not complaining. We probably needed to trim some of the fat. But, if this is important to the council, then I appreciate that you support me in getting a maintenance worker to handle that downtown cleanup. That is the person that picks up the carts, picks up the garbage, washes off the urine, picks up the fecal matter with a bucket, picks up the garbage. It's not a good job, but I think it's needed.
Rick, this is Liz.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much for mentioning that, because I've been concerned with how we're going to fund continued cleanup downtown, especially. Do we also need added money in the budget for like dumping fees and equipment use?
Well, we typically have community development pay for our dumping. They have money. I don't know if it's an abatement or I don't know where it is, but we typically either dump it there, or I think right now we have a 10-yard dumpster at the sewer department that we dump into, and we take it by dump truck. So it's not all going to community development. And actually, now that I think of it, it's probably less than 50%. But it's not an amount that Public Works can't take care of.
Okay. And then you mentioned the shopping carts, and I didn't see that phenomenal number in your list of accomplishments that your crew has picked up. It's got to be like hundreds.
We were over 1,100. We started in April. We were over 1,100 the last I checked. So yeah, there's a lot. We have a shopping cart rodeo down there. I don't know. There's a lot of them are damaged. we throw away anything that's damaged, but I bet there's 300 of them sitting at the treatment plant right now. Apparently they're making so much money, they don't need to come pick them up. So,
You know, we've got a shopping cart ordinance that would relieve us of some of that burden, or at least reimburse us for the cost of our crews to collect those and haul them to the dump if necessary. And I'd like to see us in 2022 be a bit more aggressive with working with the local businesses
well, I'll be
to
honest.
resolve some of that.
I'll be honest with you. I don't know what that ordinance is, and I don't know what what those requirements are. We have one guy doing it, and he probably gets shopping carts maybe an hour of his day. So we're talking, $20 a day. So yes, I mean, there's a cost. It's not a huge cost, but there is a cost, and we can definitely look into the ordinance and see what it takes to get reimbursed. I have a feeling it's going to cost more in admin time than we ever get paid, but that might be my skepticism. I don't know.
And then I wanted to also, as I was looking at the budget things, the street fund repair and maintenance showed only $13,250. And that doesn't seem like enough to do even pothole repair.
So one thing we did in this year's budget, as you'll see, there's bars numbers with 494s and 495s. Those are capital outlays. So those are required to be tracked for comparison to see how much city staff time is being spent for capital improvements. So we have a requirement, a minimal amount that we can do. Well, we were placing that money. So we are putting like $30,000 or $40,000 into roads and streets when it was for supplies. So we've taken it out of those capital funds and we put it in supplies. So all it is it's just been moved out of a capital fund because it's an operation and maintenance cost, not a capital cost that we should have to track and keep track of our employees on.
So then will the transportation improvement fund be what's used to make street repairs on non-arterials?
Yeah, we use transportation improvement funds on all streets.
Okay.
We typically use our TIF and TBD is the same thing. We typically use our TBD funds on streets that are eligible for grants. So if we can get a grant, we won't use just straight up city money on a street that's eligible for a grant. So we will apply for a grant and use it as match. On streets that aren't eligible for grants, then that's what we'll use our some of our TBD money for as well. But if there's grant money out for a certain classification of street, we're not going to pay for the whole thing. We're going to look for money, and that's what happened down there on the Port Dock side of Wishkon Heron. That needed to be done for a long time. It took us 3 years to get the funding, but it ended up we saved the city over $500,000 by delaying for 3 years and keep applying for the funding, and we finally got funded. They probably got tired of getting our application. So, but we used our TBDS match, and then we were able to share that burden with the state grant.
Well, you've been doing a lot of work this year, and you've got a fabulous team backing you, and looking forward to more exciting projects in 2022.
Thanks, Liz.
Hey, Rick.
Yeah.
That shopping cart ordinance that Liz was referring to, the fine is $30 per cart just for you guys picking it up.
Okay.
And if you guys have to dispose of it, it's $70 on top of that. So basically $100 a cart.
Connie, that makes sense for us to start following it then.
Well, I just was like, I can't remember what the fee is, so I looked it up for you.
Thank you. We now can fund the street department.
There you go. But at least maybe help that, jump
Absolutely.
the fees.
Yeah, well, until they start get wise, I mean, that basically pay for that downtown employee.
There you go.
Well, maybe it'll also be an incentive for them to use a locking cart return station like so many other places do when.
So we'll have to come up with an SOP on that, some kind of standard operating procedure that follows the ordinance and that has been adopted. So I don't want to just drop off an invoice at Safeway and say, you owe me $2,500, because they're just going to laugh at that. But so we'll work on that in the upcoming months and get that SOP put together.
Rick, I emailed you which ordinance it was, just so you could find it quick.
Okay, thank you, Tony. The utility construction fund. This looks 837,802 in 21, 821,306 in 22. Difference is $16,000. The only project we have in here is the gun range, and we have. I'm sure the police don't want to hear it anymore, but we have struggled getting this thing permitted, and we're still working on it. Our consultant's working on it. We only had $300,000 or $325,000 around that for the gun range. We're over $40,000 just trying to do the permitting. It's just it's asinine. But the good thing is the city Public Works Department owns the property, and we're going to donate it to the the police department, which will make that a net loss of zero, and we'll still be able to give them a first-class firearms facility. And the issue is there's an old garbage dump, and the first time we approached it, they want us to clean up a garbage dump, which who even knows how deep the garbage is, and that's just not going to happen. We just walk away and nothing would get done. So what we came back with was a proposal to cap the garbage dump and then to deal with all the runoff through different treatment facilities. And it sounds like their ecology's game for that. So that'll be a much cheaper proposal. It'll give them the facilities. The problem is the facility has to be located within the city limits, but far enough out that it doesn't, bother city citizens. It can't be in the county. County has made it clear they're not going to, approve it. That's why when it was at Lake Aberdeen, we annexed Lake Aberdeen to put that in city limits. So anyway, we're working through some issues there. I'm confident that we are going to get this thing done. Hopefully I still have friends at the police department when we do get done, but that'll remain to be seen. Sewer utility. These are big numbers. Responsible for maintenance, construction of the sewer treatment plant and the sewer collection system. 2020 budget was $8,588,800. And the 2021 budget is $15,509,278. This is, we've got $6 million worth of loans coming in. We're not going to expend $15 million. But our loans are coming in as, I think it's $6.5 million for 2022. Actually, they might come through in 2021. It's going to be really close where they come through. But they're 50% forgivable principals. So we have to borrow the whole amount. We pay back through the first year at the whole amount, and then we get a 50% forgivable principal. So that $6.5 million is going to become $3.25 million. And it's probably not all going to be expended in 2022. That's a lot of work. We're still in design on a number of these things. We haven't started design on some of them. What we're trying to do is we're trying to work with ecology to combine projects so that we don't have to be under construction for 4 years straight. We can combine the projects and do all like-mannered work in the same area at the same time, which turns out to be more trouble than you'd expect when you're trying to combine loan agreements and funding and different funding sources. But I got a meeting tomorrow morning to try and work through this with ecology and our consultant, and we're very hopeful. So again, this is all part of the rate study that we did, the rate increase that we did to address the $30 million worth of improvements that are needed at the wastewater treatment plant in the next 6 years. We are doing you've seen the resolution come forward to set a public hearing for to address changes at the treatment plant. It makes it sound like we're raising rates. We're not raising them any more than what we've already agreed to 2 or 3 years ago. It's the same rate structure. But in order to get that 50% forgivable principal, we have to go through this process. It's called environmental justice. Even though it has nothing to do with the environment, it's dealing with our underserved and our poorest population. So anyway, it's a hoop we're jumping through to get that free money.
Hey, Rick, looking at that picture you had there with that slide,
Yeah, the ship.
what's in the background, are you trying to represent our treatment plant as being really old?
No, I wasn't, but it's been around for 100 years.
Okay.
Sewer utility accomplishments. We've treated over 1.15 billion gallons of wastewater. We just found out this week that we received a performance award from the Department of Ecology for no permit violations, which is big because they're battling it. I went down there today. I got a call from the chief operator saying, "Get your ass down here. We have an emergency. And if you're not down here in 5 minutes, I'm quitting." So anyway, I got down there. I don't want to have to replace him. He's a sharp guy. So we were having issues with our brand new bulk hypo. We had, you can see this wall here all the way around the facility. That's a containment area, but we had bleach leaking inside the containment area with no ability to stop it. So we had to do a number of things. We hooked up a pump, pumped it back into the truck, got it fixed. So I got down here that we completed the bulk hypo. Everything's done there except for some punch list items. We replaced 6 pump stations that were budgeted last year. We replaced the influent pump number 1. Kyle was going to get me a picture of that, but then we had the emergency with the bleach on the ground, so that didn't happen. The challenges, we have an aging infrastructure. They never got to the point of doing the INI study. We had $75,000 in there for the INI study. We didn't spend that money. We had other things that came up that, held them back. The biggest thing is labor. I have a staff of 4 maintenance workers at the treatment plant. And right now, I have 2. One took a job at the water department as a lead operator there. And we're trying to get the positions filled. The lead man at the sewer department's been on L&I for a while. Those 2 guys that are working there, the supervisor and one maintenance worker, they're on that Vector truck all the time, just keeping the system going. We have some really old age systems that they have to use the Vector truck and use the jet rotor at least once a month and sometimes twice a month just to keep them flowing. So it's labor intensive. I put this COVID-19 project delays and stuff in there. I know everybody's dealing with that. I took it out in some of them when I saw it. But then we got the continued operation of the treatment plant while we're doing all these construction projects down there. So every time we do a construction project, we're replacing something or fixing something. So we have to put a temporary system in, and that temporary system never works the way the original system worked. So there's lots of challenges there. Those guys are, you say putting out fires. That's pretty much all they do all day long is bounce around, fixing things. We've had a lot of overtime. We have a good SCADA system. They get called out to alarm sometimes 2-3 times a night. We're lucky that a lot of the stuff is tied to SCADA where they can fix it and address it on their phones. That's why we have smartphones. But there are other alarms where even though they know it's probably a false reading, false alarm, they have to respond, because if they don't, and it's something serious, then we have issues. The 22 proposal is just to continue progress on the capital improvements as we've, one thing I guess I wasn't thinking about, and I should have, I apologize, is we have new council people that probably weren't here when we put all those out. And I can get you some information on our capital improvement projects and what's going on there. So for the new people, I wasn't even thinking about that, so I apologize. And then this pump right here, you can see that's the type of pumps that we've replaced 6 of those. These are little pumps that we have all throughout the city, handling little neighborhoods. Pump lift stations is what we call them. They just create pressure in the system, lift it up so it can drain out by gravity. Any questions on sewer? Okay, the water utility. We have 17.75 full-time employees, and we have 4 part-time summer help. Part-time summer help typically work 5 months out of the year at most. We try and hire kids that are going to college because they have a very definitive window where they work, typically 3 months. And that works well for us. And that also helps our local, youth pay for college and get an education. So that saying that, they're responsible for operations, maintenance, and construction of domestic water distribution system, including the headworks up the Malinowski Dam, the treatment plant, reservoir, storage tanks, water mains, water meters, and fire hydrants. Our 2020 budget was basically $1 million, and our 2022 budget is $9.6 million, a reduction of almost $400,000. And again, we're not reducing service. We're not reducing anything. This is all tied to capital improvements. When you see a $500,000 increase or a $400,000 decrease, we haven't changed services. We haven't changed anything. We have the same amount of people. We're budgeted the same FTEs. It's just capital improvement projects. 2021 accomplishments. We've done some good stuff in water. So, across all departments, water has done some exceptional things that I'm excited to share with you. So we renewed 600 lineal feet of 1-inch steel water line. I put renewed because we replaced some of it with 2-inch PVC and we replaced some of it with 1-inch PEX. So anyway, we replaced old water main. We replaced 12 old hydrants, and we replaced 6 mainline water valves, which are big water valves, which it's quite a deal to dig about. We continue the process of maintaining our meters and replacing those, but I didn't put that in there. We finished our paving at the filter plant, approximately 600 feet of paving. The reason that was important was it was a gravel road, and during the summer it got so dry that when people drove on it, the dust would go up and get in our settling basins where we have water quality concerns and monitoring. So it was throwing off our results. So by paving the road, we don't get the dust in those settling ponds. Bids are due for construction of the Reservoir 2 liner and cover. That project has kind of been blown up. Originally, it was a $4 million project to do liners and covers on both Reservoirs 1 and 2. We got some seismic issues on Reservoir 1 on the north slope, and we're doing a study on the south slope that I told you about earlier. So in the meantime, we don't want to put $2 million worth of liners and covers on a reservoir that might not stay in service. So we borrowed the whole amount for the whole 4 million, but we phased it. So we're only going to do the Reservoir 2 first. That gives us time to do an analysis on the slope. And also if it comes back seismic with some seismic issues, then we can look at other things that we can do with plumbing and take it out of service. And then we just wouldn't take that last money on the loan and it's a reimbursement. So we have to spend it to get it. So that seemed like the best way to deal with it through safe drinking water. Department of Health. The construction we did a construction project at the wastewater treatment plant to connect reclaimed water into the plant from the secondary clarifier. Secondary clarifier is basically where the water gets cleaned up to the point where, and it's going to be disinfected and sent to the river. So you wouldn't want to drink it, but it's definitely better than it comes in. And so reclaimed water, we use a lot of water at the treatment plant in different processes, hose down and things like that. And what we used in the past was we used potable water, which is treated water from our water department. And when we did basically when we came back with the water bill, it was like $140,000 the sewer plant should have been paying every year for the amount of water they were using. And we can't gift that. So one of the benefits was a bulk hypo was that it uses a lot less water. And then we're also using this reclaimed water. So we're using water off into a reclaimed system. So we're pulling it off our secondary clarifier to use in our hoses to wash clarifiers with. So because it doesn't have to be clean water, it just has to have pressure. So that was one thing. And the project, the engineer, our consultant estimated the project at $80,000. And our water department supervisor looked at it and said, we can do that. That this isn't anything that we can't do with mechanical joints, ductile iron pipe and mechanical joints. And they actually volunteered to take that project on, which is surprising because water guys typically don't like working around sewer. And they did it for $7,000 worth of materials and water department labor. And so it saved the city $73,000 on that project. But it gets better. So the Malinowski Reservoir Citation Mitigation, that's a bad project name, but that's what it is. We came to you last year, said that we anticipated the cost being $4 to $5 million because that's what our consultant told us it would be. We budgeted $200,000 last year for a planning and permitting document to figure out what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. We really didn't know how much it was going to cost. We just threw it against the wall and hoped 200,000 was enough. As it turns out, we didn't even come close to spending near that. And we brought in a different consultant who had a different idea and listened to some staff ideas. And what we came up with was some retrofits of the gates on the dam that allow us to drop the reservoir during high flow events when the water's already turbid and flush the sediment into the river. And you talk to the fish hatchery upstream, that's what they want. They will. The issue is if you take the sediment out of the reservoir, now you got to deal with it. But if it never comes out of the reservoir, it's just part of the process. So you can see the clam we had to clean out along the dam because the sediment was 14 feet deep up against the dam. We'd lost 14 feet at the dam of storage. So we're pulling stumps and lots of woody debris. They removed that material, got down to the point where the sluice gates were, and we put in new trash racks that were built by our equipment techs, and put in new gates that had automated stems on them. And now we believe that we could save about $4 million on this project from the potential $5 million that our consultant originally said. So we have already done the gates, we've done the trash racks, and we're not even into it $120,000. So we were able to actually do things that matter instead of creating a document that sits on a shelf. So we are really hopeful. Everything has been very promising. We tested the material that's in the reservoir. It's mostly sediment. So anyway, I think that's I'm hoping that it's as good news as I think it is. Challenges, I already kind of talked about the delays with the covers and liners because of the seismic. And then engineering is struggling to keep up with everything. So everything at the treatment plant typically is done by a consultant, and all consultant documents are managed by engineering, and we are being pushed. So the proposal, we asked for $75,000 for the bench dry pump station last year. We didn't get it done. We're working on it, but we're going to need so we have about $40,000 left over that we're not going to use this year. So looks like we'll need that money move forward. So we put it in there just to transparency. The radio tower, we asked for that last year. Turns out we didn't ask for enough. So this will finish. It's going to be about $85,000 for that radio tower. That's going to give us the redundancy that we need up the Wichita Valley, and also on our meter tower. And then we're going to replace the reservoir floating cover and liner on Reservoir 1. This is the thing I'm most excited about. So we want to expand the water equipment tech shop. This is their shop. You can see they have equipment stacked up here. They have this door here. This is where they bring equipment in. They are extremely talented. I never had a clue that people could be this talented and this stuff. We hired Nathan from the Westport shipyards, and he was a welder. He did all their fabrication and supports out there. So all very fine detail things. The expanded shop will allow for more flexibility. Right now, they don't really have a clean space. So if they want to paint something, this is the main shop. This is their shop. Things come back and forth, tracking dirt, creates a fabrication area. And it's about $80,000, and we'd split it 40,000 to our utility in water and 40,000 to our utility in industrial water. And these are pictures of some of the quality of work that they have done for us. This, starting over here with this pump, this pump was it used to be a generator. So it was a motor that came out. It was 20 years old. And the generator we used to have to use generators to run our water pumps during power outages. Instead of going with a pump, now we plumbed every pump station into electrical plug that we can now haul generators up there, and we don't have to do anything with the water. We just have to get power to them. Way better process. And we bought those generators with FEMA money 15 years ago. So been good, but this motor was just sitting there. So they contacted on their own Vaughn chopper pumps and told them that we had this motor, and do you have any kind of pump that they could mount on it? And it turns out that Vaughn had a proposal of a chopper pump that would fit that was self-priming, but it had never been tested, and nobody had ever put one together. So they basically gave us the pump. And we put it together, and they came up with a way of making the self-priming and made it work. And now Vaughn is using that prototype. They've taken it all to some trade shows there, and they're marketing this pump that our equipment techs had the knowledge to put together and come up with the way to make the whole thing work. So pretty cool. These two trucks, these were new trucks in the fleet last year. We've actually done the beds on 3 of them. We bought these trucks with no box on them, no bed on them. And these are all custom built hatches, rails. You know, the carpenter's truck has wash down water, a generator. They plumbed everything in. And if you buy the custom box on these trucks, it's typically $40,000 to $50,000 for the box. And we're doing this for just materials. Now, granted, it takes some time, so there's obviously a cost to the city for their time, but that's already budgeted. And these are some of the I don't know if you can see in the upper corner, that was a flange they made. Fine, you know, they welded aluminum to make this cam lock fitting so we could hook up 2 of our pumps and use a bolt down lid to bolt it onto a catch basin so that the water the pumps could be run at full blast instead of idled down when you just drop a hose into the manhole. So again, just some real benefits there. Anything on water? I apologize for how long this has taken. It's just there's a you know, I gotta have a lot of departments. Stormwater utility. We have 2 guys in stormwater. We have a supervisor and we have a lead man. And typically stormwater is leading. They have summer help during the summer that mow the ditches. Lead man leads them. They also are in charge of the street sweeper. They run the Vector, and they're in charge of all our stormwater pumps. 2020 budget's $893,000. The 2021 budget is $1,614,000. Difference is $721,000. And this is exactly what I was talking about. We haven't increased anything. What this accounts for is the cash balances that are in the account. Basically, what stormwater does is we have 2 employees and we transfer $500,000 to street department every year to cover what street department does for stormwater, which is street sweeping and keeping sediment out of the catch basins and things like that. So we will continue to be in compliance with our MPDES stormwater permit, or attempt to. It's a lot now. We'll do preventive maintenance on the stormwater pumps, outfalls, and tide gates. These 2 guys are the ones that are out there at night when keeping the pumps going when we're in the middle of a storm. And then we have, this is the whole $500,000 paid eligible stormwater expenses to the street department. Keep that money out of general fund when it's possible. You can see this is the old Fry Creek pump station. This is the walkway down, and it's, you know, completely underwater. This is a surcharge condition. The challenges is to continue maintain the pumping system on an aging system. Nothing new. It's the same stuff we've been talking about. We're addressing it with the North Shore levee and the drainage facilities that will come with that. I feel like we don't have all the money, but we have a good plan with our lobbyists' input, and I think we're going to get there. The 22 proposal is to just maintain the existing services. I put the reserve funds for the North Shore levee local match. You know, in a perfect world, we'd be using our stormwater funds to put in an account so for our match money when it comes to North Shore levee. You know, I asked for a big match amount that came out of the insurance funds. and you guys granted that, and you know, we're only going to use that as match for bigger pots of money, and we'll come back to you for authorization on that anyway. But this is the money that we are getting that could be used and dedicated to stormwater. So just something for the future. Any questions on stormwater? Awful quiet. You guys awake?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Fund 407 industrial water. Industrial water is responsible for the operation and maintenance of the industrial water system, which is the intake at the Wainuchi, the tunnel from the intake to the Lake Aberdeen, the Lake Aberdeen intake that sends it to the distribution lane that goes all the way to the Hoquiam River. The budget for 2021 is 1.3, and 2022 is 700,000, approximately about 600,000 reduction. Again, tied to capital improvements. So accomplishments, general maintenance. This is those equipment techs I was telling you about. This next bullet point is all them. They did this. So we asked for $470,000 last year to replace our screens on the Wainuchi intake and industrial intake. That number came from the manufacturer of those screens and mechanical gear. So that's the number we use. That's the quote they gave us. Well, our equipment techs took a look at that. We dropped the water. They took a look at the work, and they decided they could do it. And I was reluctant. I really was, but they convinced me, and they got the boom truck, and they actually hooked up in a sling a mini excavator, dropped it down into the reservoir, dewatered it, and they did that $475,000 worth of work for $130,000 in-house. You can see right here this big sprocket gear they had that locally manufactured. They replaced the shaft, the bearings. These up here, these are the screens. They replaced these huge 300-pound steel screens with fiberglass screen from the manufacturer, original manufacturer's equipment. We still got the equipment from them on those screens. And we saved so much that then we came to you guys and asked if we could redistribute some of that money and do the screens at Lake Aberdeen that we were planning on doing this year or in 2022. And you approved, and we ended up spending $30,000-ish on the screens there and replace those as well. So we were able to replace the screens at both facilities, which should have been around $600,000. And we did it for a fraction and saved the city. I shouldn't say we, I really didn't have anything to do with it other than approving and believing in the guys, but they saved $435,000. So huge kudos to them. Another thing they did was we had a backwash pump at Lake Aberdeen that the consultant said we should just replace with the in-kind pump, which was $25,000 to buy the pump and another $15,000, $20,000 for the installation. And they looked it up, they sized it, they checked pump curves. They were confident they knew what they were doing. They bought a lower cost alternative for about $2,000 and it works flawlessly. So again, good quality employees. Those are the same guys that we're talking about the shop. I don't know if anybody's ever been out to the industrial water intake. This is right here, this water, this is actually the Wainuchi River. So we just have this offshoot here. The water goes through these bar grates and our screens are housed in this building right here. So, and then it goes into a tunnel that goes all the way to Lake Aberdeen. And at points, it's like 600 feet under the ground when it goes under a hill. So it's pretty cool. What we plan on doing with industrial water is we're looking at $40,000 for the equipment tech shop, along with the $40,000 from water. We're looking at doing improvements on the boat launch and parking lot at Lake Aberdeen. that Lake Aberdeen, no offense to Stacy, but I think the Lake Aberdeen is one of the nicest parks in the city, and it is 100% maintained by and owned by the Public Works Department. So we take a lot of pride in that, and you know, if you've ever been out there, I think you would agree. We also have $40,000 in we put $40,000 for marketing of our industrial water. We have an incredible resource that is being underutilized. You know, we sell water to REG and the Cosmo and you know, a couple other small places, but our big customer was ITT Rainier at the paper mill, and when they went away, you know, but the thing is, there is a limit of raw water out there, and we think it's a good idea to get that advertised in some of these industry magazines, so that people know that we have industrial space and raw water available. So I don't know how you'd know that if we didn't advertise it. So any questions on that? On industrial water?
I don't have a question, but I will tell you that I do love Lake Aberdeen. Like to kayak out there, but also when COVID dies down, I encourage all the new council members to take the tour and go out and see the industrial water facility. It's really a neat thing to look at. So I mean, because I like that kind of stuff, but you know, but I encourage you guys to arrange with Rick to have a tour when you guys have a chance.
Yeah, we need to get people out to see the 2 filter plants and industrial water and Lake Aberdeen, and it's interesting, and at least I think it's helpful to have an understanding of what I'm talking about when I bring this stuff up. I mean, this is not normal in the industrial water intake. Equipment rental. Equipment rental is pretty straightforward. They're responsible for our vehicles and our fleet. They their budget was $547, $528 in 21, and it's about 30,000 more in 2022. One of the things we were able to do with our FEMA money is we were able to buy a 4-post lift. This is basically the concept we bought. It's not a standalone structure. It's 4 independent lifts that are on their own, and they can pick up dump trucks, top of the line stuff. We pay for that with FEMA money again. They also assisted us in the purchase of our equipment with our FEMA funds, and our proposal is just to continue our current services. Our reserve, I didn't do a lot of reserve accounts. I didn't do the water and sewer reserves. They are what they are. There's money in them. I can share that with you if you want. We're not proposing any kind of new restructures or anything. The money has been identified for future use on a number of different things. But I did keep and include it in the rental reserve just because I wanted to bring up that equipment that we bought with FEMA funds. There is a 12.5% match by the city. So we got 75% from federal government and 12.5% from the state. But in order to spend that money, we had to spend 12.5% of our own money on the 10-yard dump truck, the 5-yard dump truck, the skid steer, the excavator, the 4-post lifts, the variable message boards. So again, that came out of reserve, and we're not putting anything in. So that fund is incredibly low. We continue to be at odds with the auditors on how we run it. You know, I guess the last time we actually got a finding, but you know, I shouldn't. It affects me, but it affects Patricia more. And you know, I know she wants to get that cleaned up. She doesn't like to have those findings, and I just don't. Other than writing the check for $20 million and putting in there, I don't know what the answer is. So, and then our proposal is to continue to provide quality service to the city fleet. Oh, And look at that. It's not even 9 o'clock.
Rick, I had been receiving communications back and forth recently with somebody from the Ocean Shores Council, and she said, "What are you guys sniping our public works director for your city engineer?" And I said, "Yeah, that's kind of true." And essentially, the reply was, "Damn it, but you got a really good guy, and that's going to be a real asset to the city."
And truth be told, I just had to check to see if there's any attendees here. And truth be told, I recruited him hard. I recruited him hard. He gave us some initial interest in our engineer 3 position, and it was just a little bit too much of a cut for him. But when this position came up, it was 10% more. So I pushed him, and he told me no a number of times. I said, just consider it, just think about it. So I actually even had to go have a beer with him on a night to convince him to give it some more thought. So yes, I agree. He's quality. He has instant, credibility with staff. Everybody knows him. He's been at it a lot longer than I have. He's been a public works director for 7 years longer than I have. He's seen things I probably haven't seen yet. He's done a really good job at grants and admin and getting money for City of Ocean Shores. So we're definitely excited. So, and honestly, I'll tell it right now, if we ever get a city administrator, that's a guy to consider. I think that's his ultimate trajectory. I think that's what he's looking for in the future, is to be a city administrator at some point. He was that in McCleary before he became the public works director at Ocean Shores. And I would not mind working for him as well if the council ever decides and the mayor ever decide that that's the direction we need to go.
When does he start?
Unfortunately, he doesn't start until January 13th, but he's got time he has flex time on the books at Ocean Shores that he's going to start taking off on Wednesdays, and we're going to move our meetings around so that we have our meetings on Wednesdays, and he's going to start sitting in with all of our construction meetings on Wednesdays. So he's going to be giving us a Wednesday a week in order being paid by Ocean Shores and working for us. So again, good quality guy. So he wants to get caught up. He wants to hit the ground running. He doesn't, want to be an issue with trying to, run projects that he is not familiar with. And we got a lot of things going. So anyway, I'm looking forward to it. He's, there's a city engineer out there at Ocean Shores also that would fit in really well as our engineer 3, but I don't know him well enough to recruit him. So any questions? I'm sorry for the length.
Wasn't too long, and was multiple departments, right?
There's a lot to public
So-
works. So.
I'm
Does anyone
wondering,
have any questions for Rick while he's still with us? And this is, and not just Rick, we have a whole lot of overachievers as department heads who brought us a lot of really quality information the last couple of nights. So this is a lot of good stuff to look at and think about. Much appreciated.
I wonder if that comment Rick made about Aberdeen Lake Park, if we need to give Stacy the floor again, equal rebuttal time.
I can give her points on how to run a park.
She's not here.
I know, that's why I said that.
She can watch the recording later.
Oh, that's right. Okay, and if you guys come up with any questions, I don't see anybody asking here, but if you have any questions and you need me to answer them, just give me a call. drop me an email. I'll
Yeah.
research it. I'll work with Patricia to find the answer.
And so Mayor, I'll just save myself an email and so on behalf of the council, request copies of all the PowerPoints information that was presented tonight.
No problem. You want that all to come out in one email? We could send them all into Patricia and she could send them all out together. Or...
Whatever works best for you guys. It's just nice to have for reference.
Okay.
So what's the pleasure of the council? Do you guys want to stay on the call for a little while and discuss, or do you want we have a meeting next Tuesday night? And yes, Liz.
I had some other questions that pertain to budgets not included in these main departments that we've been hearing from, or that were, but I was too slow to get my questions in. If folks have a little bit of oomph to keep going for a bit, otherwise I can put them in an email and send them to Patricia and then go from there.
One of the practices that I think is good for all of us is one of the a good governance thing is, you know, if a council member asks a question about the budget, all the council members should get the answer. So I think because that just helps us come back together again on the same page. And so if it just would be nice, Liz, ask your questions of Patricia, but if the whole council could be copied on those, then that just helps keep us all knowing what's might come up and everything. So that would be good.
Very good, I will. And I wanted to thank the mayor and Patricia for all of your good work on pulling together this very thorough budget packet that we've been given, and what a slog to go through it.
Actually, these workshops are, I don't know, maybe I'm like Tommy, I like weird stuff, but I love infrastructure. I love hearing about what our people do. We don't get to see or hear enough of that. I agree with her that we should all take those tours because it's people that we don't hear from very often who are helping conduct those tours, and it's really, really good stuff. And this time of year, you know, hearing from, you know, all this stuff that's going on is kind of just renews my pride in the city and all the good work that we do. And at the end of the day, we're probably going to have some tough conversations about a few issues, but we can go forward knowing that we might have struggled paying for it, but we got a lot of people doing some good work.
Well, I just happened to go through the shop over there, the water shop, a while back, and those pieces that Rick was talking about, they made for the gates at the dam, were laying on the floor there. And I seen them and made a comment about them, and the tech in there said that they were going for the dam, and I never gave it a whole lot of thought. We were moving on, looking at something else. But now that I just heard from Rick that he made those, I didn't know that. This is the first time I learned that. And I guarantee you that I'm impressed. They looked like they were professionally built at a large machine shop.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive.
They're really good. And you know, the reason our original consultant said that it was going to be a $4 to $5 million job up there was because the penetrations through the dam were under 10, 12 feet of sediment. And, you know, they came up with the idea of using an air lance. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but we took a John boat around and we took our big air compressor and on a about a 20-foot long 1-inch galvanized pipe and put it in the sediment and turned on the air, and it put the sediment into solution and washed it over the dam. And we're like, God, that's a great idea. We can do that on a bigger scale and do this whole reservoir for a much smaller cost than what we originally thought. So I mean, the reason it wasn't considered before is they were so worried about getting debris stuck in the dam and not being able to close it. And we had the gates that were on there were broken and we couldn't do anything with them. So what they did was they plated the gates on the backside of the dam. They hilted in like 40 bolts to hold a plate on. And then they removed the gate on the front of the dam and repaired it and replaced it. And now they're putting these big oval trash racks on there to make sure that we don't get anything into those gates and those penetrations through the dam that'll plug it and jeopardize our water supply. So, I mean, the plan is sound. I don't know that we'll get all the sediment because the farther back we go from the dam, the farther upstream, obviously, the less it's going to flake off and wash down. But man, it's the right first step for sure.
I'll just say that some of you new council people, a couple of years ago, way before COVID, we did some employee barbecues, and we went to the public workshop and did one for them. We did one at City Hall for the fire department, or for the police department and the City Hall workers, and we did one over at the fire department. And so, you know, you guys might want to think about doing something like that again when COVID is over, to thank all our staff for all their hard work during COVID and all their ingenuity at saving us money.
Thanks, Tony.
So was there any questions or comments anybody on the council wanted to make about any part of the budget that we've seen yesterday and today? It's 10 minutes before 9. It's still early enough to have a little bit of discussion if you had something.
Mayor, I was curious about, and maybe they're different fund numbers, but see if I can find it here. There's a Fund 111, a contingency fund that only has $2,400 in it. And why bother with such a little amount? Why not close that if there's indeed another fund that's replaced it?
What page is that on?
I'm looking at my list of questions and
okay.
page
23.
16 or line
23.
16 of.
It's page 23.
Thank you. Patricia, you probably dream these things, live and breathe and dream these numbers.
During budget, yes. So the contingency fund was there before I got here. I have not messed with it. It's continued to earn interest. And it's not been on my radar to go figure out what it is yet, since there's really nothing going in or coming out of it.
Okay, so that's 24, 23 that we could slide into something else. And isn't there a contingency fund that is like $1 million?
No, not that I know
Good
of.
shave.
There's
I
an
remember-
insurance reserve fund that's $722,000. It has $522,194 in it as cash, but it's used to support the pension and the fire funds. So there's money transferred out to those.
Yeah, I thought I remembered the mayor talking about that it was important to him to have some money in reserves.
That's the ending fund balance.
Ending the cash, estimated cash balance.
And is that somewhere around $1 million?
It's projected to be 5.8 million for the general fund. Every fund has its own ending cash balance.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
So I did have one thing as soon as the mayor gets off the phone, maybe just ask my question so we can be thinking about it. But maybe Patricia is also probably well equipped to answer this. So Mayor, in terms of the bigger picture, what's on my mind is, using ARPA funds, to extend, the reserves and everything. It feels like, we're kicking the can, we're creating an ARPA cliff, because in 2 years, when those funds are gone. So I was just wanting to hear your thoughts on what are we putting in place to lessen the impact for when, when those ARPA funds are gone and we're going to have to balance the budget just on what we get. It's a tough question, I know, but it feels like that's the kind of like, we're balancing the budget with ARPA funds to preserve reserves, but we're still a couple, I don't know what the number is, but it seems like push going on over $2 million in expenses beyond what comes in on a regular basis. It's not sustainable.
Let me interrupt here for just a real quick. Excuse me, Deanne. Hey, Rick, can you get a hold of somebody from Storm? Because there's storm water billowing out in the street at the Hemlock and Ash Street.
Yeah, well, I could have predicted that.
Well, according to the homeowner there at 2623 Hemlock, he's never seen that before.
I'll go look at it right now.
Okay, thanks.
I'm still here at work, so.
Okay, Deanne, Patricia and I talked about that quite a bit. It is a concern. I don't know, what did we ever have something final to say about that, Patricia?
When we were talking about it, currently, if we don't use ARPA and we end up using it for something else that may or may not be allowed, that's one of the key reasons. Police, fire, and EMS are all very clearly allowed uses. It freed up some of the general fund cash. So instead of going into a low level in the general fund or utilizing the fire funds to balance the budget, ARPA was the solution for 2 years, yes. After that, or during this year, property taxes are going to go up, sales tax may go up, but there's no guarantee. And with the plans for the number of facilities that we are talking about and the facility replacement issues, the piece that's being left out of it is operating costs. And so we can build, but at some point you're going to hit a wall. So that means there's going to have to be hard decisions, and that is a council level conversation.
And so, because when you're looking at, there's, I'm not challenging using ARPA funds in the way that's being proposed, but it just feels like if we didn't have ARPA, we'd be cutting, 2 or 3 million from the budget this year. And so, or maybe something significant. And yet we've got to plan for, the end of those funds at a time when we also have 3% raises that are going to kick in over time. And I was just wondering, how do we prepare for that when, we don't have significant industry that's going to come online, and just maybe the hope that somebody might build a few houses isn't going to generate the kind of tax revenue we need to prepare for the loss of those funds when they go away.
Part of the reason of the 2-year delay in my mind was, according to what I've been listening to, when the levy comes in, that potentially could generate significant investment from outside businesses, because they will have a safe place to build with the assurances that it won't be underwater or unaffordable due to the flood insurance. But that's just, you can't predict the future. Hopefully it means that the property tax, the values have gone up, so property taxes are going to continue rising. because when you have a higher cost house, you have to pay more money in taxes. And with everybody's houses around here, the assessed values have all gone up significantly. Sales tax, they're going to hit a ceiling on that too, probably at some point. And the reality of governmental is taxes don't usually keep up with inflation. And with the 1% cap on property tax, that's 100% sure with the property taxes. But again, it's a conversation. It's a good question. And it's been on my mind since I started hearing about all the facilities the city's wanting to build, but no discussion of operating costs. So that to me has always been a concern.
For the next couple of years, we're going to have to be prepared as we go along for that in our spending and watching out for that. And the only answer is if things come up and there's expenses that we face, there's going to have to be layoffs eventually. And that, I mean, you know, it's not a mystery of what are you going to do to prepare for that. Well, we have to be careful with our spending, and if that does not work, there's going to have to be layoffs. And we've done really well over the years to get by without the layoffs, and I hope that's how it works out. But that's the reality. We've been playing catch up for the last 2 years.
Mhm.
Good question, Deanne. That's been on my mind as well. You know, remembering that when the mayor got into office, he had to come up with money to cover $1 million overage. And so CARES bailed us out, I think, then, and now ARPA. And maybe though there will be some other federal program we can make use of to give us a little bit more cushion, but oh, it's a big source of worry and concern.
Well, I have some degree of confidence that we should continue to plan for our infrastructure needs. The levy certainly isn't going to come on in time to bail us out in 2 years, and it's just something that I wanted to make sure that we all understood that we're kicking the can using ARPA. That doesn't mean we shouldn't, but it just we need to be, really aware that that we're just postponing what Pete said, the inevitability of some cuts unless we can find some other way to generate additional operational costs beyond the methods we're using now, because they don't look like they're going to increase by the amount we would need in 2 years.
One of the things, as you've noticed, that we've done with the ARPA funds is, it wasn't a hard decision to make because it's pretty self-explanatory what you can use ARPA funds for, but we focused on the general fund of what we're using them for, and that's providing us the most for the least. That's the direction we're going with it. So I think it is a good investment, and we just gotta watch our P's and Q's for the next couple of years.
I was concerned to see all of those big numbers associated with an increase in claims and the cost of insurance. And I would hope that that department heads have all been charged with a challenge of getting those numbers down in 2022 regarding claims, and whether it means being more careful with vehicles or sending people to safety training or whatever it takes. But we every month there's that challenge for people to participate in health care and exercising. and I'd like it to be a priority as well, that we bring those claim costs down and save a bit of money there.
So I haven't had a chance to look at that, but I also am very interested in that. Mostly the reason I asked about that was I was wondering to what extent we might have gotten dinged because of our public safety. And that's where the unfairness is if you have 30 years with no shootings and then you have 2 in 1 year and the next thing you know, you're a high risk city. And that was one of the things I asked about it for, and then we also had, as we know, as a council, we've had some other, legal matters that we've been dealing with but I think overall, we generally have had very safe operations, but there have been some things in the last couple of years that probably drove that up. And so it's kind of unfair. 20 years, you have almost no claims, and then you have a few in 3 years, and yeah, Patricia.
I was just going to say you're absolutely on the right track. The police claims are what is driving the large increase. The admin claim also is in there, but the dollar value of the increase was due to the large public safety claims. And as you said, out of our control. So.
Well, I think we had, 2-3 car accidents, one right after the other. And all 3 of them, as I recall, were somebody running a red light or something like that. It wasn't even our fault, but yet you still get on the list.
So we probably didn't even get accident. What is it they call it? Your one free accident or?
Yeah, I think they left that out.
But anyway, I'm looking forward. I'm glad to hear. I've been busy all day. I've not seen that. I'm glad that, thank you for sending that out, Patricia. I was looking forward to seeing that.
Welcome.
So I'm looking at a lot of people who have a lot to think about, and maybe we can come together again on Tuesday and talk about where we're at and whether we need to schedule another workshop or whether we're ready to stick to the budget schedule that is before us. Does that sound okay? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, I see some
I
people
won't be
fell
able
off.
to make that.
Oh, pardon me?
I probably won't be able to make that because this next Tuesday is going to be Seaport Board and every other and Public Works Committee, all that fun stuff. So I'm going to be in committee meetings from 4 o'clock until almost 10.
Okay, well, the 23rd, it was actually, we rescheduled our meeting to have our council meeting on the 23rd.
That's the Thanksgiving
Okay.
week.
That's fine. Okay, so I'll probably have to skip the Seaport Board meeting then.
Well, Mayor, if you would, again, I think I saw a whole bunch of attentive faces both nights, and I just thank your staff, if you would, for us.
They all work pretty hard, and I don't think there's anybody out there that's doing less these days. They're all doing more. And it's just bizarre how so many years we got by just everybody doing their job as described. And then all of a sudden, a few years ago, things started picking up. And I think the federal government and the state government has helped cause that by increased regulations and increased requirements and this, that, and the other, and needs in our community increasing, and all the staff members are just doing a lot. And it's
and that is something to think about, because we're on the verge of having the largest infusion of infrastructure cash in this country since the post-war times. And what capacity do we have to make sure, you heard Rick talk about how much paperwork is involved in getting into that
Yeah.
money. That's maybe another conversation we should be looking at having, is how are we going to position ourselves to not get left behind again? And
Yeah.
make sure that we're at the table to get some of that funding.
I
So,
think we've been doing pretty good the last year, the 2 years, getting back in there and reaching for.
but like
them-
you said,
them
they're
fun-
at capacity now,
Yeah,
and so how are we going to create capacity to go get that money?
yeah, we could always, brother. Just a second, I think that's Rick again.
Put our consultant team on it.
But we have to be prepared to think about it and talk about it and have a plan for it. Yeah. As soon as the mayor's off the phone, though, I think we're ready to call it a night, you guys. I know I am. If you don't mind.
Most definitely.
I noticed that Melvin is part of Team Kitty Cat.
Oh yeah, I got 4 of those things here.
Well, one of them chose to grace us with an appearance.
We probably don't have to wait for the mayor.
No, we don't. I think if it looks like he's solving oh, there he is.
Oh, there you go.
So, Pete, if all is fine at Ash and Oak or wherever it is he is, where I think we're going to adjourn.
One last thing real quick here, that I heard, that I thought of earlier today, that, and Patricia might have some answers here. We were going to try to have, reach out for an IT person by the end of this year. And I think that's kind of been slipping through the cracks, maybe.
When we reached out to BJAX, we realized his contract doesn't end until the end of March.
Yeah,
And he is not super supportive of ending it earlier. So what my hope was is we could get through the budget and then bring it to council so they can agree to the RFP we want to send out, and then give them an overview of what we think would be the best savings and accomplish the goals.
okay.
So yeah, with the holidays and with BJAC's response, I thought that it would be better to wait until we can have a clear conversation and we
Yeah.
can make the decision.
So is that in the budget though?
We have in
No.
the budget for what's being BJAX and net. I always want to call Adam.
What
and-
we currently have is in the budget.
Yeah, what we
but-
have is
but
in
the
the
urg-
budget.
The
Right.
urgency, the reason I brought this up is because, as you know, Wayne is retiring and he'll
In
be
March.
leaving in March.
Yeah.
And Wayne does a ton of IT work. And the urgency was, I wanted to have somebody that was capable of doing that on
Has-
site in time to work with Wayne.
The chief has already assigned one of his officers for Wayne to pass his knowledge to him.
So
So
we're good
that is
there.
in process, yes.
I haven't heard all the details on that, so
Yeah.
why I wanted to bring it up in front of the council, so they're all
Yeah.
aware of what's going on there too, so.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good then. Thank you, Deanne.
Okay. Good night, everybody. We're adjourned.
Good night.
Right.